I put the exterior probe on the other side of the door and let it hang for a while. And it looks like I've got negative 12.3 degrees outside currently. You know, one of the biggest SHTFs to ever strike during modern times occurred in 1998. It was called the 1998 ice storm. It affected a large portion of Canada and the United States. As far as I know from research, this is the longest period of time that any modern society has had to experience a grid down scenario. The amount of people affected by this were staggering by any time period. There were millions of people without power. Over 1 million people were displaced from their homes. They became unlivable. This was the middle of winter time. The homes and infrastructure took billions of dollars, over $5 billion in damage from this storm. And some people were without power for almost 2 months. This was a real SHT event. The amount of people affected by this, like I said, was staggering compared to modern day scales. And the amount of time that it lasted was incredible. There was major damage done here to the infrastructure. So there's a lot of lessons to be learned from this. One of the biggest lessons from this event was that, you know, it's not the National Geo American Blackout Fantasy G.I. Joe YouTube pretender deal. This was really life and death. A lot of people were affected by this. A lot of people were injured. Fire trucks couldn't get through to put out fires. Food and water couldn't come into to these areas. They just could not turn on the electricity in some of these areas for long periods of time. It was the dead of winter. A lot of the damage, out of the $5 billion in damage that occurred in houses from freezing pipes. And that really brings up the reason why I'm making this video this morning. I want to give a few tips out on how to avoid frozen and broken pipes in your house. You know, northern houses and southern houses are built a lot differently, but one of the biggest differences is that they don't have a lot of insulation in their walls, and if they get a deep freeze, pipes can freeze and break and cause a lot of damage. It can be a very expensive ordeal. For anybody that's gone through it, they know what a disaster it is. Now, a lot of this is going to seem like common sense, but as we all know, common sense is pretty uncommon these days. So I'm going to put these tips up. This will help you avoid having broken pipes in your house in case you're ever in that situation or scenario. Broken pipes can totally destroy a house and cause a lot of damage real quick. The easiest way to avoid broken pipes in your house in case you're going into a deep freeze or you lose electricity and you know it's going to be freezing overnight and you're in danger of this happening is to find the lowest point in your house where the water comes in. In this case, it's the water supply pipe in my house. This is the pipe that comes in to supply water to my house. And I've got 2 union joints here that I can take off, and I could drain all the water from the house. Gravity's going to do that for me. I could drain it into a bucket or a hose. That way, taking the water out of the pipes so it can't freeze and break them. This is my boiler room. This is another good point, a low point in my house that I could take a union joint off and drain the pipes upstairs, again, avoiding any freezing. You know, if I had to go through this, I probably would pick 2 or 3 points in the lower pipes of my house to drain, to make sure that none of the upper levels do freeze and break. Now, draining your pipes is definitely a guaranteed long-term fix for avoiding the broken pipe disaster. But if you need more of a short-term fix for the situation, maybe you're getting a freeze overnight if you lost power for a short time, simply turning your faucet on and letting it dribble, let's say overnight, is a way to avoid broken pipes as well. Letting that water flow through so it doesn't have a chance to freeze. And last but not least, I'll show you this little gadget. It's a heavy gauge copper wire coated in plastic that you can actually wrap around the pipe that you're worried about. And it's not hot. You don't have to worry about it catching on fire. Probably takes less than a light bulb to keep going. And it's just enough to keep the pipe in question from breaking. If you're worried about a certain pipe on the outside, or you got a pipe, let's say that's in a crawl space, a lot of southern homes don't have basements, you just wrap this around the pipe and it'll stop the pipe from freezing and causing damage. Now, those are pretty inexpensive ways to avoid broken pipes in your home in case you do go through a freeze, or let's say you suffer a power outage for a long period of time in the winter. It is hard for me to take watching all the drama that's being played out over this year's weather and the winter that we're experiencing. You know, over the last 4 or 5 years, we've had really, really mild winters, and they complained constantly about that and blamed it on global warming, and, you know, people are causing the world to warm up. And now we finally get a normal winter, which is really what this is. This is nothing extraordinary. I think someone said the other day that here in Minnesota we broke a 30-year record, which really is nothing, right? 30 years is nothing in the blink of an eye of the kind of weather that this earth has seen. And now they're complaining about that and even trying to blame it on humans as well. I don't know what to say, guys. It's like watching the culture or the society that built its town on the side of a volcano, saying it's never going to blow up, even though obviously it's a volcano and the dangers are there. Or the people that build housing on vulnerable shoreline areas. You know, it's only a matter of time. Winter does happen. Weather does happen. And it might happen to you. And it's only a little bit of knowledge, just a few tips that can, you know, avoid a total disaster. So, anyway, keep warm out there. I'm enjoying this winter.